Everyone, including you, by the way, has an opinion on Elon Musk. The tweets, the politics, the controversies. There's always something new to be outraged about. But here's what almost nobody's talking about. Underneath all that noise is a man who has spent 30 years building 7 companies using the exact same set of principles. Over and over. Across rockets, cars, tunnels, satellites, social media, look, strip away everything that doesn't matter. And what's left is one of the most powerful company building playbooks that has ever existed. This is that playbook, but we need to back up a bit to go to his college years. Elon is staying up until 3 a.m. playing a strategy board game called Diplomacy, while most everyone around him is asleep. When someone asks him why he was so obsessed with these strategy games, he said 5 words: "I am wired for war." He said that in his 20s. I mean, he still says it, but the one sentence tells you almost everything you need to know about the guy. Extended periods of calm make him uncomfortable. Chaos is where he feels at home. Intensity is not something that he just turns on. It's literally his default. So keep that in mind for everything that follows. His first company was called Zip2. He and his brother slept in the office and showered at the YMC, to give you some idea of the dedication. He worked every waking hour and expected everyone around him to do the same. He was contemptuous of the concept of work-life balance in his 20s. And honestly, not a lot has changed. One thing he figured out early: showmanship is salesmanship. Put another way, perception is reality. When investors came into the Zip2 office, Elon's team had bought a giant rack frame and put one small computer inside it. It was just to make it look like they had a massive server. And it worked. Visitors thought they were doing some serious hardcore stuff. And this idea, the one dramatic demonstration that could beat 1,000 words, is something that he will use in the rest of his life. Less than 4 years later, Zip2 sold for $37 million. Elon walked away with $22 million at age 27. And almost immediately, he did something that defined his entire career. He put nearly all of it back into his next company. When asked why, he said, "The real payoff is the sense of satisfaction in having created a company. I could go buy an island, but I'm much more interested in building something new." 20 years later, when he had billions from selling Tesla stock, he did the exact same thing. He put it straight into Twitter, now X. The money was never the point. The money was the fuel for the next project. The next company was PayPal, and this is where you start to see his principles sharpening into something a little bit more defined. He was obsessed with simplicity. He said, "I honed the UI to get the fewest number of keystrokes to open an account." He hated middlemen, and he wanted to sell directly to customers always. He restructured the company so that engineers led the product teams, not product managers. He said separating design from engineering was a recipe for dysfunction. Designers had to feel the immediate pain if something they built was hard to engineer. That idea will reappear in every single company he builds after this. People around him at PayPal noticed something else. Even when what he was saying sounded like crazy talk, people believed him. And that's because he believed him. Belief is contagious when it's genuine. Elon had the ability to transfer his conviction to everyone in the room. He did eventually get pushed out of PayPal as CEO, and here's something worth noting: he didn't burn the relationships on the way out. He stayed friendly with the people who ousted him. 6 years later, when SpaceX was about to die, Peter Thiel's fund put $20 million in and saved it. Elon said, "After I got stabbed in the back like Caesar in the Senate, I could have said, 'You guys suck.' But if I had, SpaceX would be dead." Even in failure, he was playing the long game. After PayPal, his ambition went vertical. He decided he was going to build a rocket company and colonize Mars. He was 30 years old, had just been pushed out of 2 startups, and had no aerospace experience. He went to the public library and started reading rocket engineering manuals. He called experts and asked how to borrow their old engine diagrams. He devoured entire shelves on the subject. The same thing Thomas Edison did. The same thing Edwin Land did. When you can't afford to hire the expertise, you become the expertise. This is also where one of his most important principles comes into full view. Elon starts with the mission and figures out the business model later. He didn't ask, "Is there a market for rockets?" He said, quote, "My mission is to make humanity a multiplanetary civilization." And they worked backwards from there. He understood something that most people miss. Technological progress isn't inevitable. It doesn't march forward on its own. If people don't work extremely hard to push it forward, it stops. And honestly, it can even go backwards. That belief is what drives the urgency behind everything else he does. Once he started building rockets at SpaceX, a new obsession emerged, and honestly, it never left: cost. He developed what he called the idiot index. The idea is simple: calculate how much more expensive a finished product is compared to the raw materials it's made from. If the gap is huge, you're being an idiot. A supplier quoted $120,000 for a part. Elon looked at it and said it was no more complicated than a garage door opener and told his engineer to build it in-house. It cost $5,000. He did this constantly, comparing aerospace costs to bathroom stall latches, to home air conditioning units, to anything cheaper that could do the same job. The word cost appears 158 times in his biography. Andrew Carnegie had the same obsession and built the world's largest fortune from it. The greats always stay in the details on cost. Tightly linked to cost control was his hatred of outsourcing. Elon wanted to manufacture as many components as possible in-house, and this wasn't just to save money, but to maintain control over quality, supply chain, and the daily feedback loop between design and production. The brain strain of designing the car is tiny compared to the brain strain of designing the factory. He spent more time walking assembly lines than he did in design studios. Henry Ford owned a railroad so he could control the supply of raw materials. Elon built the same instinct into every company that he touched. One of the things people who work for Elon say most often is, I learn more unique lessons per minute from him than from any other human I've ever met. Part of that comes from how relentlessly he questions the things the rest of us just accept. Question every requirement. Not which department made it, the name of the actual human who made it, because all requirements, he believed, are slightly wrong and dumb. The only true non-negotiable rules are the laws of physics. Everything else is a recommendation. He found plastic caps being placed on battery prongs at the Nevada factory before shipping to Fremont, where they removed and thrown away. Sometimes they'd run out of caps and it would hold up entire shipments. He asked why the caps existed and no one could tell him. He said, all right, well then we're gonna get rid of it. The principle is simple. Question it, find out if it's unnecessary, and if it is, delete it, and then move on. This obsession with deletion runs through everything he does. Half of his biography is Elon yelling at people to delete, simplify, and cut. He walks assembly lines and stares at each station trying to find something to remove. He once sent an email to his rock engineers with the subject line, "We are on a deletion rampage. Nothing is sacred. Please go ultra hardcore on deletion and simplification." After years of production crises at Tesla and SpaceX, all this hardened is something he calls the algorithm. His executives know it by heart. He has said it repeatedly, quote, "I became a broken record on the algorithm. I think it's useful to say it to an annoyingly repetitive degree." And there's 5 steps to this. 1, question every requirement and make it less dumb. 2, delete every part and process you possibly can. If you don't end up adding back at least 10% of what you deleted, you didn't delete enough. 3, simplify, but only after you've deleted. Never simplify something that shouldn't exist at all. 4, accelerate. Speed up the process, but only after the first 3 steps. And 5, automate. Dead last, never first. The biggest mistake he made at Tesla, and one that he publicly admits, was automating before he'd finished deleting. He had robots doing things that should have been cut entirely. They ended up sawing robots out of the production line and throwing them in the parking lot. Quote, excessive automation at Tesla was a mistake. To be precise, my mistake. Humans are underrated. He owned it publicly, updated the algorithm, and moved on. That's another thing that never changes about him. He accepts full responsibility and blame, and he does it fast. When there's a problem, Elon doesn't schedule a meeting, he goes there. He called this walk to the red. Every station on his factory floor had green or red light on a monitor. When he saw red, he walked straight to it. What's the problem? Who owns this part? Why does this sensor exist? Can we delete it? Then he moved to the next red light. When Tesla's Roadster ballooned from $50,000 to $83,000 per car, he didn't call an executive. He got his plane. He flew to the Lotus factory in England and sorted it out on the floor. He flew to Seattle and fired an entire Starlink team on a Sunday night because they were moving too slow. He moved himself into Tesla's factory for months during production. Hell, slept there, ate there. Wherever Napoleon was, that's where his armies did best. He said that about himself without a trace of irony. And then there's the urgency. A maniacal sense of urgency is our operating principle. He said that at SpaceX. He said it at Tesla. He said it everywhere. When an engineer told him a timeline couldn't be cut in half again, Elon looked at him and said, "Do you want to remain in charge of engines?" When the engineer said yes, Elon said, "Then when I ask for something, you give it to me." This can seem like he was just unwilling to bend, and that's kind of what he was. When Tesla needed to produce 5,000 Model 3s a week or go bankrupt, the factory couldn't scale fast enough. Elon remembered a story from World War II. The U.S. government built bomber production lines in the parking lots of aerospace companies. 3 weeks later, a tent went up in Tesla's parking lot. Cars rolled out, 5,000 a week. The company survived. His line from that moment, if conventional thinking makes your mission impossible, then unconventional thinking is necessary. Even when he knew 20% of his rapid decisions were wrong, he kept making them because the cost of moving too slow was always higher than the cost of being occasionally wrong. But none of this works without the final piece, the thing underneath everything else. Elon isn't special because of what he knows. He's special because of what he does. Every single day, without stopping, across decades, And you just learned what that is. The idiot index: question every requirement, delete relentlessly, go to the problem, move with maniacal urgency, frame everything as a mission worth dying for. That's it. That's the whole playbook. And now it's yours. The only question left is whether you're actually going to use it or not.